And even finer as this, you know. Some can be this fine as powder. This one I already sorted because I'm going to make small little earrings out of this. Or in some of the rings maybe we use this type of gold. Then here you see some of the nuggets. And each piece is one of a kind. There is never two nuggets exactly the same. Maybe this one for you. That is 14.3.
How many grams is that?
That one is 14.3 grams. That one would be about $715. When you have a chance later on to go out to the gold fields, you will see the terrain also changes. Some gold sits very deep down in bedrock and hasn't moved, where other pieces had a lot of earth movement over it, the water had gone over it. So something like this has moved a lot further in the ground. As for instance, see like this little piece, you see the quartz in there. Even the corners are rounded, but it has not had the same movement over it, and gold is soft.
When they realized that this was something big, George Carmack said, I'll go to 40 Mile, because that was the only recording office at that time was at 40 Mile. And that's 40 miles on the other side of what is Dawson City today. There was no Dawson then, right? He went all the way down to 40 Mile, staked his claim, came all the way back, put the post in to identify his claim right here, and the baseline was then set. So this is what they're using as the baseline, right here where the creek is. He had 1,000 feet that way, he had 1,000 feet that way, and 500 feet here. You know, there was a lot of explorers around. So that word just spread like you wouldn't believe, right? So everybody was coming here, staking their claim, and off to 40 Mile. This is claim number 1. This is just one little creek within the Klondike Valley, right? There's Dominion, there's Hunker, there's El Dorado, Sulphur, Quartz. They go on forever. Every creek in the 800 square mile radius had gold.
The digging is done laterally. You have the big digging machine here is the arm that you see extending outwards. And if it would be all set up, you would have a chain of buckets revolving surrounding that big arm. So what happens is it displays the ground at the front and going gradually deeper all the way to bedrock. And what happens is you displace the entire low-grade part of the deposit left behind after those crazy years of the gold rush. So what you need to recover the gold out of the low grade is something more substantial, because you go through so much more gravel to recover a profit. So the hand miners with their picks and shovels, they couldn't afford coming over here and moving that amount of ground. So a group of people in New Zealand added the sluice runs on board of the floating barge, and that meant then that not only did it dig, it also separated the small from the rocks and boulders, but it also recovered and sifted the gold that stayed inside before evacuating the raw material. So that's a very convenient way to mine. They used to actually float them into a man-made pit surrounded with water. So you dig a big hole and you fill it as you go along. At full speed, number 4 unloads 22 buckets a minute. And that's a mass amount of gravel coming one way. If it cannot escape, it will fill up the boat and sink it very quickly. So bringing the machinery at a cost for this one, $500,000. So picture in your mind how much that would be nowadays price with the steel and so forth. And it came, the manufacturers for this one specifically was Marion, Ohio. So bringing the machine in parts, assembling it where the ground was obtained from the government, the concession system was an accepted fact after the turn of the century, knowing that you needed to release tracts of land to bring the large societies and corporations and prevent the boom and bust of hand mining.
Jack London came to the North Country to look for gold. He was only here a very short time. In total, about a year. It took him just over 3 months to get here. He spent the winter way out in the wilderness on Henderson Creek, saw Dawson at the beginning of the gold rush, staked a claim, and then had to leave the following spring. He was very sick with scurvy. So he only spent a short time in the North Country, but it was a really important time in his whole life. And what a lot of people will say is that the time that he spent here, the people he met and the stories that he heard, all became the catalyst to his writing career. He did not do any writing while he was here, although he had tried to break into a writing career before he came to the Klondike. However, after the Klondike Gold Rush, he went on to write over 50 books, hundreds more short stories, many magazine and newspaper articles, and he became the most well-read, well-paid author of his time. When the cabin was rediscovered in the 1960s by Mr. Dick North, it was way out in the wilderness, about 70 miles south of Dawson on Henderson Creek. And Mr. North realized that it was, number one, historically significant because Jack London had lived there while he was in the North Country. And Mr. North also realized it was important to bring it out of the wilderness in order to preserve it, to commemorate Jack London's connection to the North Country.
Hoo-hoo-ya-hee-ay, hey-hee-ya-hee-ay, hoo-hoo-ya-hee-ay, hey-hee-ya-hee-ay, hey-hey-ya-hey-ya, oh-oh-hee-ay, hey-hey-ya-hey-ya, ah-hey-ya-hey-ya. We have in my nation, Trondequitchin, about 946 people. We're getting our language back, we're reviving our culture, we're doing a lot of tradition.
My mother and father raised 16 children on this river. I'm the last of 16 kids. Basically, nobody lived off the land anymore. So I'm sort of, I guess, promoting this lifestyle. The color of the water is glacier silt. You hear that hissing? The silt is so fine, it rubs up against the boat. The silt comes from southern Yukon, a place called Kawaii National Park. There's a glacier field there. That's 100 miles upstream from Dawson. I figure it's probably about 80% silt and 20% water that comes out of the White River. At one time, there's over 250 boats running up and down the Yukon River. They burn wood for fuel. These ones here, over time, the Mother Nature took its course, and what you see there is what you get. The fish wheel was invented in 1902 by Scandinavians. It's anchored offshore by cables, pushed away from shore by two poles, one in front of the raft, one behind. On the inside raft, underwater, we have a wire mesh. As the salmon comes up along the river bank, underwater, it guides the salmon into the scooping basket. The scooping basket pulls them out of the water. They fall in the slide down the slide, fall in the holding box and stay there until you come pick them up. My father built these all of his life, and he taught me how to build them all my life. I retired my father off the fish wheel at the age of 92 years old. The biggest salmon I've seen come out of the Yukon River, caught by a fish wheel, weighed 94 pounds. Fish wheel can catch anywhere from one fish to 1,000 in 24 hours, all depending on the run.
Tommy, this is your guest house.
Yeah, this is my guest house.
So we could stay here, mush dogs in the winter.
Whatever you like. We can
Cute little cabin.
We can accommodate you.
Rivers were the key modes of transportation and still today play a big role. Yukon means big river, and where that comes from, it's a First Nation name, but the Yukon River itself is 2,100 miles long.
It's a unique experience because there aren't very many places left in the world where you can experience the power of an unadulterated river of this magnitude. The Yukon River was the main artery of transportation for people, for goods, for everything. People used to live along the river, whereas now people have moved to the highway, and those communities that are not touched by the highway were abandoned, and Fort Selkirk is one of those communities. There's no commercial venture here. That's what makes this place so special. It's preserved as it was. It's literally an outdoor museum. There's nobody selling ice cream here, or there's no false fronts on any of the buildings. They are real. This is a pioneer town the way